Hi everyone. If you have been hanging around with me for any length of time whatsoever, you will probably already know that I am absolutely and increasingly passionate about the vital importance of movement in terms of living well and aging well. Does that resonate with anyone? As you've started getting a little bit older, which of course we are all doing, you might have found yourself becoming a bit more restricted physically, a bit more restricted in terms of your energy, and the things that you're able to do feel a little bit harder, or maybe you can't do them as well, or maybe you can't do them for as long. And if that is the case, you are 100% not alone. But what do we do about it? There is research out there that shows that we are getting so much less in the way of physical activity these days than we used to as a culture. And there are so many negative effects of that. But how do we get out of this? There's so much that, makes our life more convenient, but stops us from moving. And the risks of lack of physical activity are things like cognitive decline, lots of serious illness, dying younger, lots of things. And the other big thing that lack of movement does is it decreases our quality of life. And I don't know about you, but if I live a long time, which I really, really, really hope that I will, I imagine that most of us probably want to do that in good health, right? Or as good health as we can create and access. So there are a couple of problems as I see them. One is that we have been fed the story culturally that the only important or effective form of movement is exercise, right? By which I mean physical exertion over and above our usual everyday activities. Now, don't get me wrong, exercise in whatever way you access it, that over and above kind of movement is important, and it's a really helpful thing, a really beneficial thing to do, but it may well feel inaccessible to some of us, and then it might mean that we rule out increasing movement in our day-to-day life because we're telling ourselves, well, what's the point if it's not exercise, right? If it's not formal exercise, it doesn't count. It does count. It's really important to move more in our everyday lives in ways that would not be considered formal exercise. The other thing that feels like a really big issue these days is that we get into a very vicious circle. We find it more difficult to move as we age, or perhaps I should say we find it easier not to move if we can possibly avoid it, right? So we move a little less, and then that means it becomes a little bit more difficult to move, which means we move even less, and so on and so on. You get the idea, right? So how do we put aside these sort of ideas that only exercise is important, or these ideas that, well, it's quite hard to move, so maybe I won't bother kind of thing? I'm not saying it's conscious, don't get me wrong. There's a couple of simple things you can do. One is start doing somatic movement. Of course, the best time to start is 20, 30, 40 years ago, but the next best time to start is now. Somatic movement frees up muscle tension, reduces aches and pains, and all of those things make it more difficult to move, right? If you've got a lot of muscle tension, if it hurts to move. So by reducing those, it makes movement easier, then you're more inclined to move more, and then we're into a virtuous circle, right? We move more, so it's easier, so we move more. That's what we want. The other thing is, until we're ready for formal exercise, or even outside of that, but in our sort of everyday life, even if we're doing formal exercise as well, in our everyday life, the invitation is to stop aiming for convenience and start aiming for more movement. We want to live long, we want to live healthy, we've got to move more. So this might mean, very simply, you got 4 things that you want to take from A to B, and you could pick up all 4 at once and do it, but do you know what? Actually, I'm going to do 2, and then I'm going to do 2. So we're moving a little bit more. Or instead of having all the things around you that you can reach out and pick up, you put such and such an item across the room, so you have to get up and go and pick it up, right? What if you move the remote over near the TV? I think we all need the remote these days. I don't think you can work most TVs without the remote, but put it over by the TV so you have to get up, right? Or maybe there's a spillage on the floor. Instead of getting a mop out, get down on your hands and knees and wipe it with a cloth, right? Get down there. Or maybe, you drop some things or you're something like that, and you're sort of like, oh, kids, can you just pick that up for me? I don't want to bend down. I don't want to crouch down, or whatever the thing is. No, do it. Do it even if it feels challenging, right? Not too challenging. Stay within your capacity. But find ways to move more, little ways in your everyday life, so that you are moving more, moving in different ways, right? You don't have to do formal exercise yet. It may become more accessible to you later, right? Any form of physical activity is helpful. Even a little bit, a little increase, shows significant benefits. So, invitation is to think about, where can you bring more movement in your life, and how can you make the movement feel easier so that you want to do more of it. Come and do some somatic movement with us, see what that can bring you on that second point, and keep looking for all the opportunities to move that you can find. Have fun moving. Let's do this.